Today I'm going to tell you a love story so restrained it almost broke them, set deep in the American West, where rain hammers tin roofs and destiny waits in quiet doorways. A place where pride and longing collide, and where one wrong step can cost you everything. It began with a hug, a simple, impulsive embrace. But it was enough to shatter 2 years of silence and change the course of 2 lives forever. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like on the video and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Elara Quinn had not meant to run into his arms. The motion rose up out of her like a gust of prairie wind, wild, unplanned, unstoppable. It slipped past the discipline she had spent 2 long years building. 2 years of knowing Talon, 2 years of wanting him, 2 years of standing just far enough away to satisfy the rules of town and silence the ache in her own chest. She saw him framed in the doorway of the trading post before her good sense could catch up. Rain clung to his shoulders, darkened his hair. And then she was moving, crossing the wooden floor, closing the space between them, wrapping her arms around him as if she had every right in the world. It was supposed to be quick. Just a breath. Just relief that he had come back alive from the high country. Just an acknowledgement of the fear she never allowed herself to show while he was gone. She meant to step away, to murmur an apology, to rebuild the polite distance that had defined them since the day he first walked through her door. But Talon did not let her go. His arms came around her, slow at first, then firm. He drew her in until she felt the rain-soaked buckskin against her cheek, the solid heat of him beneath it. She felt his chest rise sharply, felt the air shift between them like a storm breaking. The careful space they had guarded for 2 years began to dissolve, quiet and inevitable as frost under morning sun. They stood there too long. Longer than manners allowed, longer than friendship excused. Rain pounded against the roof. The hearth snapped and glowed behind them. The rest of Redwater might as well have vanished, because in that doorway there was nothing but Elara and Talon, and the truth they had both been burying. When she finally gathered the strength to lean back and look at him, her breath caught. There was hunger in his eyes. She had glimpsed it before, quick, restrained, hidden beneath restraint and discipline. But now, there was something more. Something open. Something unguarded. Something that looked dangerously like love. Elara, he said. Her name sounded different in his voice, rougher, heavier, edged with feeling. I'm sorry, she whispered, though the words were a lie. I shouldn't have. Don't. Talon cut in low and steady. Don't apologize. Don't take it back. Don't pretend it didn't mean anything. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. Then what did it mean? He lifted a hand and cupped her cheek. His palm was warm despite the rain. He tilted her face up so she had no choice but to meet his gaze. It meant everything. His voice roughened. It meant you feel what I've been feeling for 2 years. It meant this careful friendship, this distance we keep, he exhaled. It's not enough. Not for me. Not for you. He hesitated, jaw tightening, as if forcing the truth past old restraint. I'm done pretending, he said at last. Done acting like I don't think about you every damn day. Done standing across a room wishing I could be closer. Done lying awake in the mountains, wondering what it would feel like to hold you the way I'm holding you now. Tears slipped down Elara's cheeks, relief, joy, the shock of hearing her own hidden thoughts spoken aloud. I've been pretending too, she admitted. Telling myself it was just friendship. That it had to be. But it never had been. Not from the first moment she saw him. She remembered that day as clear as gunshot. She'd been behind the counter of the trading post. Silas Alder left her sorting fresh freight when the door opened, and Talon stepped inside. Tall, still as carved stone, black hair tied back, eyes sharp and steady as a hawk's. He moved with a quiet grace that didn't belong to crowded rooms. And when his gaze met hers across the store, something inside her shifted like the earth settling after a quake. She had been 27, newly widowed. Malcolm Vane gone and buried, leaving behind a marriage that had been obligation without warmth. She came west looking for a clean start, a place where no one knew her history. She had planned to run the trading post a few years, save money, leave with something secure. She had not planned on falling in love. She hadn't believed she could. But love had come anyway in the shape of a scout from the Stone Elk line, who stopped in for supplies, who lingered after business was done, who listened to her as though her words mattered. Their friendship built slowly. Conversations stretched longer. He told her stories of ridgelines and river crossings. She told him about freight orders and town gossip and quiet dreams she barely admitted to herself. He fixed loose boards, mended hinges, taught her small skills that made frontier life easier. He became someone she waited for, someone she counted on. But beneath it all ran something deeper, a current neither dared name. She would catch him watching her, his dark eyes unreadable but intense enough to make her stomach tighten. She would look away first, afraid of what might happen if she didn't, afraid of the wanting growing wild inside her. She told herself it was impossible. She was white. He was Crow. The world they lived in did not forgive that kind of crossing. She told herself it would bring trouble, loss, hardship neither could afford. She repeated those sensible arguments like scripture, wore them like armor. And for 2 years, the armor held. For 2 years, they played their roles careful, courteous, nothing more than friends who happened to share long looks and longer silences. But standing in his arms, now feeling his hand against her skin, hearing truth in his voice, the armor was cracking. And Elara realized she did not want to rebuild it. For 2 long years, Elara Quinn had stared at the ceiling above her narrow bed, aching with a hunger she pretended was wisdom. She told herself she was being practical, careful, sensible. That distance was protection for him, for her, for the fragile balance they had built in Redwater. But now she stood in Talon's arms, looking into his eyes, hearing the truth she had convinced herself he did not share. The walls she had built were splintering. The space between them was gone. And she knew with sudden clarity she had no desire to rebuild it. "What happens now?" she whispered. Talon brushed his thumb along her cheek, catching the tears that slipped free. His touch was steady grounding. "That depends," he said quietly. "What do you want?" She had known the answer for 2 years. She had buried it beneath propriety, beneath town gossip, beneath the shadow of Malcolm Vane's memory. But with Talon's hand on her face and honesty burning in his eyes, she could not lie another second. "I want you," she said. The words came out firm, not shy, not trembling, a declaration carved clean and sharp. "I want all of it. No more pretending, no more standing 3 feet apart like strangers. I want to live, Talon. I want to know what it feels like to belong to you without walls between us." Something fierce and bright flickered across his face, wonder hunger and something close to relief. "Are you certain?" he asked. "This town won't smile kindly on it. The Redwater Folk will talk. Some will turn their backs. There'll be consequences." "I've already paid the price for being careful," Elara replied. 2 years of caution, 2 years of loneliness. I've been miserable while pretending I was wise. I won't do it anymore. She lifted her chin. I choose you. Let the consequences come. A low sound escaped his throat, half disbelief, half desire, and then his mouth was on hers. The kiss began slow, almost restrained, as though he were offering her one last chance to step away. His lips moved carefully, questioning instead of claiming. Elara answered without hesitation. She pressed closer, open to him, let him feel the certainty in her body. There was no retreat in her, now only decision. The kiss deepened. His arms tightened, pulling her flush against him. She felt his hands slide down her back to her waist, drawing her hips forward until there was no mistaking what she did to him. Her fingers tangled into his rain-damp hair, holding on like she feared he might vanish if she let go. When they finally broke apart, both of them breathing hard, his eyes were dark and blazing. I've wanted this, Talon admitted, his voice rough as gravel. For so long, I've imagined kissing you, holding you, seeing you look at me the way you are now. I told myself it would never happen. Thought I'd spend my life watching from across a room. You don't have to watch anymore, Elara said. You can have me, all of me, tonight and every night after. She took his hand and led him toward the back of the trading post, past shelves of flour and coffee tins, toward the small room where she slept, toward the bed where she had lain awake so many nights imagining this very walk. Rain drummed steady on the roof, sealing them inside their own private world. At the doorway to her room, Talon stopped. He held her hands firmly, his expression suddenly serious. I need you to understand something, he said. This isn't just a night to me. Not something I'll forget by morning. He swallowed once. I love you, Elara. I have for 2 years. If we step across this line, I'm yours. Fully. For good. Wherever it leads. Her chest tightened so sharply, it almost hurt. I love you too, she answered. I've loved you so long, I can't remember what it felt like not to. And I don't want something temporary. I want a life. With you. However, we have to build it. He kissed her again this time, without hesitation. There was urgency now. 2 years of restraint breaking loose all at once. They stumbled inside hands, exploring, rediscovering each other in the ways they had only imagined. Elara had known a husband once. Malcolm Vane had not been cruel, but he had not been tender either. What they shared had been dutiful mechanical. Something endured, not desired. She had believed that was simply how it was. But the moment Talon's hand slid over her skin, she realized how wrong she had been. He touched her as if she were something rare, as if every inch of her mattered. His fingers traced her slowly, reverently, as though mapping a country he intended to cherish. He removed her clothing with patience that made her breath unsteady, kissing each new stretch of skin as it met the air. You're beautiful, he murmured against her shoulder. I've pictured you 100 times. It never came close to this. Heat rushed to her cheeks, but her body answered him with unmistakable truth. She reached for him in return, unfastening his shirt, pushing fabric aside to feel the warmth and strength beneath. The rain outside softened to a steady whisper. Inside that small room behind the trading post, Elara Quinn stopped living in caution and stepped fully into the life she had chosen. No one had ever called Elara Quinn beautiful. Malcolm Vane had shared her bed once, but never his voice. In every room of their marriage, he had been quiet, and in the bedroom, he had been no different, distant, dutiful, untouched by wonder. So when Talon whispered the word against her skin, something inside her stirred awake for the first time. She reached for him. Her fingers were unsteady as she worked open the buttons of his shirt, brushing the warm skin beneath. Slowly, inch by inch, she uncovered him, broad shoulders built by mountain trails, a strong chest marked by wind and sun, the solid lines of a man shaped by open country. She touched him with the same reverence he had shown her. "I've imagined you too," she confessed softly. "More times than I should admit. More times than I could ever count." They lay down together on her narrow bed skin, to skin at last, no barriers left between them. Elara drew in a sharp breath at the heat of him, at the powerful rightness of being wrapped around the man she loved. It felt like stepping into something she had been walking toward her entire life. Talon moved with care. Patient, attentive, his eyes never left her face. He read every flicker of breath, every shift beneath his hands. He adjusted without being told, as though learning her was more important than claiming her. He wanted her response, wanted her joy, and she gave it freely. Her body answered him in ways she had never known it could. Sensations rose through her like a river swelling after spring thaw, slow at first, then unstoppable. She had thought passion in books was exaggerated, painted larger than life. It was not. When the feeling crested and broke over her, it left her trembling, breathless, overwhelmed by something fierce and beautiful she had never experienced before. In that moment, she understood how small her former life had been, how dim compared to what was possible. Talon had not merely touched her. He had shown her a world she might have lived and died without ever discovering. Afterward, they lay tangled together, the storm outside, fading to a soft rhythm against the roof. The fire in the main room had sunk low, but neither of them cared. The world beyond that small room could wait. "I can't believe we lost 2 years," Elara murmured against his chest. Talon let out a quiet laugh, and the sound warmed beneath her ear. "If I'd known it would be like this, I would have kissed you the day I first walked into your store." She tilted her head to look at him. "Then why didn't you?" His hand traced lazy circles along her back. He was silent for a moment. "Fear," he said at last. "Fear you'd turn away. Fear I'd ruin what we had. Fear of what folks would say if we crossed that line." He exhaled slowly. "But mostly I was afraid of how badly I wanted you. It was stronger than anything I'd ever felt. I thought if I let it loose, I'd lose myself." Elara propped herself up on one elbow. And now his gaze softened. "Now I see losing myself was never the danger. The real danger was never finding who I was meant to be. Those 2 years I wasn't protecting anything. I was just postponing what was always coming." He brushed her hair from her face. "You were always meant to be mine, Elara. And I was always meant to be yours. We just had to find the nerve to claim it." Tears welled in her eyes again. "It feels like I've been walking toward this my whole life," she whispered. "Like everything before Malcolm coming west, inheriting Silas Alder's store, was just the road that led me here." "To you?" "Maybe it was," Talon said quietly. "My people believe some bonds are written long before we see them. That certain spirits will find each other no matter the distance, no matter the obstacles. Maybe this room was always waiting for us." She smiled through the tears. "If that was a test, I failed it every day in my heart. Every time you walked into the trading post, I wanted to run to you. I stood still, but inside I crossed that distance. I did the same." Talon admitted. "Up in the mountains alone by the fire, you were the last thing I saw before sleep and the first thought when I woke. You've been with me all along." They lay quietly after that, letting the weight of it settle. The world felt different. She felt different. Elara was no longer the guarded woman who measured every step. She had reached, she had chosen, and she had discovered that wanting something fiercely was not weakness. It was courage waiting for its moment. Eventually, she drew back slightly. What comes next? What kind of life do we build from here? Talon studied her face before answering. That's yours to decide, he said. We can keep it quiet if you'd rather. Spare ourselves the talk, or we can stand open in the daylight and let Redwater see us for what we are. He paused. There will be judgment. Maybe worse. Elara did not hesitate. I'm done hiding, she said firmly. 2 years of silence was harder than any gossip could ever be. I won't go back to pretending. I'm not hiding anymore. Elara Quinn said, her voice steady as prairie wind. I won't stand in shadows beside you. I want to walk at your side in daylight. I want Redwater to see it plain, you're mine and I'm yours. Talon's gaze sharpened, protective and cautious all at once. Some won't take kindly to that, he warned. There'll be talk, hard looks. The Redwater folk might turn away from your store because of me. Then they can turn, Elara replied without hesitation. I'll find others who won't. Anyone who can't respect my choice doesn't deserve my trade. Her chin lifted. I would rather lose every coin in that register than lose you. The store, the reputation, the comfort of being approved of it means nothing compared to what I have with you. Talon drew her close and pressed a slow kiss to her brow. I don't know that I deserve a woman like you, he murmured. Yes, you do, she answered softly but firmly. You deserve to be loved without secrecy, without shame. And I intend to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. The night deepened around them, quiet and heavy. They came together again, not with the fierce urgency of their first joining, but with a slower, deeper tenderness. It was no longer about breaking through barriers. It was about learning each other without hurry. Elara discovered that closeness could shift and unfold like layers of mountain mist. That desire did not burn only bright and fast, it could glow steady and warm. Every touch revealed something new, every breath shared another piece of trust. When dawn finally stretched pale light across the horizon, they rose together. Elara knelt to coax the fire back to life, while Talon stepped onto the covered porch to gather dry wood spared from the night's rain. They moved easily around each other, instinctively aware, as if they had been sharing space for years instead of a single night. Over breakfast at the small wooden table, they spoke of the future where they might live, how they would run the trading post side by side, what they would say when questions came. They made plans, abandoned them, laughed at themselves for dreaming so boldly. There was something intoxicating about it, building a life in words before building it in action. I've got one more confession, Talon said when they had finished eating. Elara arched a brow. Another one. A rare smile touched his face, the kind that softened his whole expression. Not as big as the last, but it matters. She leaned forward. I'm listening. That hug, he began, almost sheepish. The one that set all this loose. I saw you before I stepped inside. She blinked. You did. I stood outside in the rain, he admitted. Watched you through the window. You were sorting crates behind the counter. I told myself that when I walked through that door, I was finally going to speak the truth. Elara felt warmth spread through her chest. You stood out there on purpose. I was already soaked, he said with a small shrug. A few more minutes didn't change much. But when I came in and you ran to me, when you wrapped your arms around me without thinking, I knew I'd been a fool to wait. I knew you felt it too. And I knew I couldn't pretend another day. She reached across the table and laced her fingers through his. I'm glad you stopped pretending, she said quietly. Because I was close to breaking. Talon nodded. You weren't the only one. Every time I rode away, I told myself that when I came back, I'd finally tell you. and every time I lost my nerve. Until yesterday. It started with a hug, Elara said thoughtfully. Just that. Nothing grand. The biggest rivers start with a trickle, Talon replied. The tallest trees begin as seeds, and the strongest loves begin with a moment that looks small until you see what it grows into. They spent the day side by side, not because there was no work to be done, but because neither could bear distance now. Elara opened the trading post as usual. Talon stayed with her stacking supplies, helping customers moving through the space as if he belonged there. The Redwater Folk noticed. How could they not? Elara found reasons to brush his arm to stand close. Talon looked at her without restraint now, without hiding what lay in his eyes. Some customers said nothing, only raised brows, or exchanged knowing glances. Late in the morning, Rufus Briar, gray-bearded and weathered like old saddle leather, set his goods on the counter and studied them both. "Took you long enough," he grunted. Elara flushed. "Excuse me," Rufus snorted. "Anyone with eyes could see you two were circling each other for years. Glad you finally quit dancing." He tossed coins onto the counter and left before either of them could answer. Elara and Talon stared at one another. "Were we really that obvious?" she asked. Talon laughed low. "Seems we were. I thought I was careful," she admitted. "So did I." They both shook their heads, smiling. The days that followed became the happiest Elara Quinn had ever known. She and Talon fell into a rhythm: shared work, shared meals, shared nights. It felt effortless, natural as breathing. They spoke without restraint now, as if trying to reclaim every quiet word they had swallowed over the past 2 years. Conversation stretched long into the night, raw, honest, unguarded. Where there had once been careful distance, there was constant closeness. A brush of hands while passing, a lingering glance across the counter, a touch at the small of her back that said more than any whisper. And their love, once denied, grew deeper with each passing day. It was no longer only fire and urgency. It was warmth, laughter, a shared breath before sleep, a steady knowing. Not everyone approved, just as Talon had warned. A few of the Redwater folk stopped coming by the trading post. There were whispers that drifted through town like dust on a dry wind. Once or twice, someone spoke sharp enough words to make Elara's spine stiffen. But she had expected that. She had chosen it. And every time doubt threatened to creep in, she would look at Talon, at the quiet strength in him, the unwavering way he stood beside her, and she would remember exactly why she had stepped into the light. He was worth it. They were worth it. What they had built together was worth more than the approval of a town that had never truly given her anything she wished to keep. 3 months later, they were married. The ceremony was small but meaningful, woven with elements from both her world and his. Rufus Briar stood among the few from town who had proven themselves loyal. Members of the Stone Elk line rode in from the reservation, bringing with them their own traditions, their own quiet pride. At first there was stiffness between the groups, white guests on one side, Crow guests on the other. But as the evening wore on, laughter rose. Stories were shared, barriers softened. By nightfall, they were celebrating together. That evening, lying in her husband's arms, Elara stared at the ceiling of their room and traced the road that had led her there. She thought of Malcolm Vane and the cold years of marriage without love, of riding west alone with little more than determination and a stubborn belief she could build something better, of inheriting Silas Alder's store and telling herself she would never need anyone again. She thought of the day Talon first walked through her door, and she thought of that hug, that single reckless moment when she had run to him without thinking. The spark that had become a kiss, the kiss that had carried them to her bed. The confession that had finally broken free after 2 years of silence. "What are you thinking about?" Talon murmured, his voice thick with contentment. "The beginning," she answered. He smiled against her hair. That hug, she agreed softly, the one that turned into a kiss. "And everything after." "I'd wanted you so long," Talon said quietly. Saying it out loud felt like stepping off a cliff. Terrifying and freeing at the same time. "I felt the same," Elara admitted. "When I told you I wanted you, I thought my heart would break from the risk of it. But it was the first honest thing I'd said in years. We wasted so much time pretending," he said, "holding ourselves back, protecting ourselves from the very thing we needed." "We were afraid," she replied. "And fear makes fools of people. It also makes them brave eventually," Talon said with a faint smile. "It took us 2 years, but we found our nerve. We reached anyway." She nestled closer, feeling his arms tighten around her. "I'm grateful," she whispered. "Grateful I ran to you. Grateful you didn't let me go. Grateful we chose to stop surviving and start living." "So am I," he said, "and I'll stay grateful for the rest of my life, for you, for us, for whatever we build from here." They fell asleep wrapped in each other, the way they would for years to come. Morning would bring work challenges, the steady rhythm of frontier life. But they would face it together. It had begun with a hug, just a simple, impulsive embrace born from relief and longing. That hug became a kiss, fierce and full of 2 years' worth of unspoken desire. The kiss led them to her bed, to discovery and devotion, to the confession they had both been waiting to hear. "I've wanted this," he had told her. And she had wanted it too. For 2 long years they had held back. And when they finally reached for each other, everything changed. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is open their arms and refuse to let go. "Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. We appreciate you more than you think." If this tale stirred something deep inside, we invite you to remain part of this frontier of memories. More true stories of honor, compassion, and destiny are waiting for you here. Subscribe, share, comment, and thank you for riding with us today. Aviso legal barra disclaimer. Our content is designed for artistic and entertainment purposes and may reinterpret historical themes using fictional touches. We apply AI tools thoughtfully, only to support production, while keeping human supervision over editing, emotional tone, and narrative coherence. We always comply with regulatory guidelines for AI-based media and avoid deepfake practices or identity manipulation. All supporting components remain legally sourced. Please ask for authorization before sharing or adapting any segment. Your respect makes it possible for us to continue telling meaningful stories.